Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education on this Monday, November 18th, 2024. If we'd all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to review and approve the agenda. Can I get a motion, please? Matt Campbell, second. Wex, all in favor? Thank you. And then we're going to approve 2 minutes, one from October 25th. It was a special meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the October 25th minutes, please? Matt Campbell, second. Phil Hogan, all in favor?
I have a change.
Yes.
Is that Brendan actually left. He didn't abstain. Sorry, thank you. Brendan left. I think the minutes are showing, these minutes in front of me are showing that he abstained. He actually didn't abstain. He just wasn't there to vote.
Got it.
So I think what we do is we show that box is grayed out.
Right.
And we can find out when he left on the minutes. We can just note.
So I believe that it's not on video, but it's on audio, and I believe that we have that on audio.
Yep, we can make that change.
Okay, we'll make that change. Thank you, Penny. Next, we'll approve.
And then vote with the amended.
Sorry, yeah. Okay, so let's vote with the amended. Brendan not abstaining, but leaving early. Can we already have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. All in favor? Thank you. And then we'll get a motion to approve the November 4th, 2024 minutes, please. Brendan, second. Phil, all in favor? Thank you. Next, we're moving on to comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes be allotted each speaker and a maximum of 15 to each subject. And please, if you approach the board, just state your name and your address.
Good evening, Board of Ed members, and thank you for your volunteer service. Good evening, Dr. Lutzy, and thank you for your service. Students learn best when parents and teachers work in partnership, and parents need to be able to trust the administration and the teachers. To do this, parents, sometimes grandparents, need communication and transparency. Transparency about books, as well as online content and articles used as curriculum. They also need to know what standards are used in each discipline in the selection of curriculum. Was the Alexi book, which is the genesis of this discussion, a one-off assignment, or are there other inappropriate books and materials? How many classes have had to read the Alexi book? For how many years has it been assigned curriculum to New Canaan teachers and students? We do not know the answers to these questions, but we are the taxpayers. These are our children. I ask, how is curriculum developed in New Canaan? Who has the say? Does the district have published standards for curriculum development and the selection of ELA, social studies, and health text and materials? In order to trust teachers and supervisors who have the key role in curriculum development, parents need transparency on what their children are hearing and reading. Do we have a communication gap between parents and the administration on curriculum? Students learn best when parents and teachers can work as partners. How can we do this without published standards and transparency? Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to approach the board?
Oh, by the way, I'm Mary Ann Knogan. I live at 258 Park Street.
Thank you.
Good Good evening, members of the Board of Education. My name is Julia Farberov, 108 Sagamore Trail, and I'm here as a concerned parent to address the issue of curriculum oversight in our district. According to Connecticut General Statutes, Chapter 170, Section 1020, the duties of Board of Education, it is the duty of each local Board of Education to establish a school district curriculum committee. The statute clearly states that this committee shall recommend, develop, review, and approve all curriculum for the district. However, I have not been able to find any information about these members of this committee within the New Canaan Public School website. New Canaan Public School website lists only 4 committee assignments: resources, communications, governance, and facilities. There's no mention of a curriculum committee, which raises serious questions about compliance with the state law. Without a dedicated curriculum committee, how can we ensure that the educational content provided to our children is thoroughly reviewed and up to date and aligned with our high academic standards? Parents like myself are looking for transparency and accountability for our educational decisions are made. I respectfully request that board clarifies the existence and function of this committee, and if it does not exist, to establish one as mandated by law. I would also like to discuss a potential violation of our own New Canaan Public School policy. Section 6160, curriculum evaluation, states that each spring, stakeholders, which is parents, is supposed to receive a survey where we can provide feedback about our curriculum. In 3 years that my children have been in school, I've not received a single survey that allowed me as a parent to provide any kind of feedback. This lack of communication is deeply concerning, as it suggests that parents' input is not being actively valued. Engaging parents in the evaluation process is essential to identifying gaps and areas of improvement in our children's education.
It's been 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would another member of the community like to approach the board? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we're going to move on to reports and recognition. We've got an innovation update with Melinda Meyer and Matt Salvestrini.
Yep, and as Matt, Melinda, and Kristen, who's going to be joining them for the presentation, go to the podium just to share with the board. Again, as you know, we've had for the last couple of years the district goal focus on innovation and developing our program around this great work. We like to explain it to people who don't understand what innovation is, that it's sort of that next iteration of the STEM initiative of about 10 years ago. And as you'll hear from Melinda, Matt, and Kristen tonight, in New Canaan, it takes shape in a variety of different ways. And we are very excited about the work we've been doing and even more excited about the work that's ahead. It's all yours.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education and Administration. Thank you for providing us the opportunity this evening to share with you an update on how innovation is developing in the New Canaan Public Schools. My name is Melinda Meyer. I'm the Director of Innovation, and joining me tonight is my colleague, Kristen Kleiss, who is the Dean of Sachs Middle and Intermediate Schools, and Matthew Salvestrini, who's the Director of Digital Learning. Together, we're going to focus on tonight's presentation on how design thinking and artificial intelligence align with our broader vision for preparing students and faculty to think creatively and solve problems collaboratively. But before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge and thank the faculty and administrators who are here tonight that have been pioneers, risk takers, and collaborators since the start of this journey. The administrators here are David Gustich and Dr. Ferrer from the middle school. We also have Sarah Granite here from the intermediate school. We have district coordinators Mary Hanna and Sarah Bross, and we have teacher Bronwyn Lukowski. So thank you all for coming. I would also like to thank the 54 members of our steering committee. Yes, we've grown since the start, and we continue to grow. The steering committee is composed of each of the board members here, so thank you all for your time. Teachers representing all the schools, administrators, students, and even higher education. At New Canaan Public Schools, our portrait of the graduate, innovation vision statement, and district goals are deeply interconnected. Together, they create a cohesive framework that guides our work. The portrait of the graduate defines the qualities we strive to cultivate in every student. Our innovations vision statement builds on this foundation, emphasizing the power of curiosity and authentic challenges. And our district goal, in turn, provides the structure and strategic direction to embed these principles in teaching and learning. And while all three of these create a unified framework, innovation is like a living and growing tree in our district. Each branch and light bulb represents different ways we foster creativity, collaboration, and problem solving. You may notice the bulbs in our graphic, not all of them are lit or labeled yet. These represent the potential innovations we haven't tapped into, ideas that are waiting to be pursued to enhance student learning. Tonight, we're going to spotlight two light bulbs, design thinking and artificial intelligence. These two areas are especially relevant as they equip our district with the skills, mindsets, and dispositions needed to thrive in a dynamic world. Now, since most of you have attended at some point Innovation Steering Committee, I'm going to lightly touch upon what is design thinking and keep the overview brief. Design thinking is a human-centered, iterative approach to problem solving that helps students develop flexibility, adaptability, and creative problem-solving skills, empowering them to navigate complex problems and challenges. And new this year is we have our own common language that we use to describe design thinking here in New Canaan. Last year, a subcommittee developed this process that you see up on the board, and shared the recommendations of this language with the steering committee back in May. It starts with exploring a challenge or a problem, focusing in on the most critical aspects, brainstorming solutions, prototyping those ideas, and reflecting on what we learn. Empathy and collaboration are at the heart of every phase, and you see that represented by the overarching circle around it. And this ensures that the results are human-centered and impactful. Besides recommending this language, the subcommittee also shared that the graphic to represent this is equally as important. And the reason why it's important is that it will then show the iterative aspect of the process and the fluidity in which people can flow between the different stages and elements. It's not supposed to be linear. You're supposed to be able to come in and out and cycle back through again. Our high school students on the left-hand side are in Maggie Pinorio's art class, and they've taken the challenge to create this graphic for us. So what you see on the board is not the final graphic. It's just what we're going to be using tonight until we can have those student samples ready to use. And we're so excited that the students are part of this process, and we can't wait to have a new graphic to start to use in the future. So hopefully this might be the last time that you see this. We can break design thinking down into three key areas: what it is, how it works, and the mindsets it builds. First, the process is not linear. Design thinking is flexible. Teams can move fluidly between the stages and loop back when it's needed. This iterative nature fosters adaptability, and a willingness to learn from failure, essential skills for today's learners. And finally, the mindsets and goals of design thinking are what make it so transformative in our classrooms. It's about more than just problem solving. It's about how we approach problems. Design thinking builds creative, flexible, and collaborative mindsets, helping students see challenges as opportunities. This is going to...
Shift towards innovation and design thinking has...
Maybe we can just back it up to start. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was going to start automatically. Great. Okay. The mindsets that I just mentioned are critical not only for our students, but also for educators. By adopting these mindsets of creative thinking, teachers can create learning environments that inspire innovation and agency. Our teachers who are leading this work have seen these transformations firsthand. And you're about to hear briefly from Carrie Needle, who is a grade 1 teacher, Catherine Nicholas, who is our innovation teacher, and Clinton McLeod, who is a technology integrator.
I think the shift towards innovation and design thinking has allowed my students to become more resilient. I think it has helped them to understand that mistakes or challenges or obstacles are all part of the process and to embrace them. I think the whole process of design thinking has helped my first grade students understand that there's not just one right answer to a problem, that we are problem solvers, we are change makers, and that many solutions to a problem are possible. So I've seen such a positive change in my students over the past 3 years with regard to their problem solving, their resilience, their creativity, their critical thinking, their teamwork, their cooperation. All of these skills are impacted, and positively so, by the design thinking process.
So some of the changes I've seen in students who have gone through the design thinking process is that they are much more collaborative, they are much more curious, and they ask so many deeper questions. They don't just look at surface level problems, they really, really try to use those skills developed in their design thinking experiences to delve deeper into problems. They engage more with the curriculum, and they really start to think outside the box. They're also the ones who tend to, in class, ask these really interesting questions that don't have easy Googleable answers. And so we really start to see these students thinking in more of a systematic way. They start to employ that systems thinking that's going to be so critical when they get out in the real world to solve real world problems.
One of the first things I really love about design thinking is that it starts building resiliency within our kids. And the best example I can give of this is all our technology works. Like when I was growing up, I was kind of forced when using computers or almost anything, the stuff would break all the time. And now things just typically work. And I think our students are used to that in their lives. And so when they confront hard problems, especially our youngest students, their first tendency is to want to back off from solving the problem. Well, it can't be solved. I've tried once, it can't be solved. Where design thinking really builds up that resiliency. It gets them to think that you're not going to solve something right away. You're going to have to keep working at it. And that's been amazing.
These reflections show how embedding design thinking into the curriculum creates meaningful and lasting changes in the mindsets of the students in the classrooms. Each of the 3 teachers that you saw previously on the previous slide have attended a 4-day Design Thinking Institute and have been applying what they've learned into practice and seeing these results. One of the goals of design thinking this year is to build teacher capacity, helping teachers understand the process and how to embed it within their practice. We currently have 33 educators within our district trained in design thinking, and they've been trained within the district or beyond. What's especially noteworthy is that these teachers chose to participate during their own time, often during summer, weekends, or after school. And because they're so interested and they see the value of design thinking and the potential that it has within their classrooms. We also had the privilege of dedicating time on November 5th, Professional Learning Day, to work with K-4 educators, focusing on mindsets and tools for innovation. And our building-based innovation teams will pick this up and keep it going to continue the work and sustain the momentum of design thinking within each of their buildings and their cultures. Design thinking is not meant to be an add-on or viewed as a new initiative. It is designed to enhance what we already do and embed it within the curriculum. This could be a slight shift in a performance task, thinking through the needs of a user, spending more time in ideation sessions, or highlighting prototyping. Let me give you a quick example of a social studies performance task. And as I describe the task to you, I invite you to consider what parts of the design thinking process that you see on the screen are being addressed within this narrative. As part of our grade 1 Our Town unit, first graders are tasked with creating a class plan for a potential new green space in New Canaan. Students interview parents, siblings, and sometimes community experts to learn more about the needs of potential users in the community. They next work together to create a prototype of a plan for their class design. They lean into the concept of community interdependence as they learn about the different roles in the New Canaan community. Along the way, students are confronted with challenges that might occur in their park if it was created, and work together to problem solve and adjust using design thinking. And this is just one of numerous examples that we have embedded right within the curriculum. In fact, your Friday notes that Dr. Letsy sends out often contain wonderful examples that highlight design thinking or parts of design thinking within the descriptions. And design thinking doesn't just stop at the classroom door. It is a powerful tool for addressing challenges and opportunities across our system. A great example of this is our phone-free schools initiative. This project was the first full beta test of the New Canaan design thinking process, and we are thrilled that Sachs Middle School and intermediate schools trusted the process and partnered with us to test this out. And to share more about that journey and the incredible work, I'd like to turn it over to Kristen Kleiss, Dean of Students. And she led this initiative with enthusiasm and dedication, and she's going to walk us through how design thinking was put into action and insights along the way.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for providing me with the opportunity to talk about not only my first time using design thinking, but the wonderful work that's been going on between our faculty and students at the Sachs schools around our Phone-Free Schools initiative. So when I was asked to lead this project, I immediately had this oh goodness moment, because I so intrinsically trust our students and believe in their capabilities and intelligence. And yet all the examples that I had seen time and time again with Yonder and phone-free school initiatives across the nation seemed to take a punitive approach. And I knew that that didn't fit our student body or our community. So in my head, I'm sitting there and going through actually a design thinking process of how do we communicate to our students that we trust them, that we're committed to their safety and well-being, that Yonder is really just a tool that we're using to support them in their ongoing development of healthy relationships with their phones and their other personal devices, and that this initiative really truly is the start of us starting the conversation around the latest research on smartphone use with our youth. So like I said, unbeknownst to me, I was in the explore process of design thinking. And luckily, we have such incredible faculty, and Melinda came to me and was like, I have a great idea. Why don't we get the kids involved? And I was like, okay, talk to me a little bit more about that. And I'm so happy that she did, because throughout the process, I got to see not only how wonderful our students truly are and how capable and intelligent they are, but how many so incredible staff members we have that were willing to dedicate such incredibly large amounts of time to this initiative and to learn side by side with our students. It truly was a grassroots movement, and because of that, we had some of the best outcomes that I could have never possibly imagined before this. So in this phase, Melinda and I sat down and we thought about how do we get the word out to people. We sent out an interest inventory, and we got about 45 students and staff that came back interested in the project. Most interestingly about that were most of the students that joined us either didn't have a personal device, or a couple of them were very much opposed to this initiative. And they felt that it was their duty to join our cause, to be able to be the voice of the greater student body who did not also agree in this initiative. That speaks to the empathy and the collaboration that Melinda talked about in the previous slide. The fact that our students were able to sit around and our faculty sit around and think about those extreme users really truly showed what design thinking was all about. So our focus as we sat down with students really started with them throwing out ideas of what this would look like at Sachs. A lot of them were focused on compliance. A lot of them were focused on the day-to-day of what does it really look like and how do I use this pouch. And ultimately what we landed on between students and staff was our focus for the phase one of this project would be the system to actually lock and unlock the pouches. So how do we enter and exit the building in a fluid manner so that arrival and dismissal are efficient? That was definitely a number one concern for the students. So in this process, the students sat down and they talked amongst themselves and with other staff members about what that process would actually look like and what they needed to consider. And again, what was so incredible to see was not only developmentally where their mindsets were at, but also how they thought about people outside of themselves. So we had 8th graders that were thinking about 5th graders and the height difference that would need to take place in our locking and unlocking systems. And it was truly incredible to see them come together and think about this from such a large lens. So bringing that back, we went back to the explore phase together as a group. Our 8th grade students came up with a survey that they wanted to send out to the entire student body, which they ultimately did. They really felt it was important for students to be able to provide their voice on not only whether or not they had a smart device, their feelings around their device being locked in a pouch throughout the day, and then additionally, what made the most sense for their exit strategy at the end of the day. They were very concerned about everyone feeling most comfortable in their natural flow of leaving the building, and that being the focus of their initiative. Whereas our 5th graders very much thought about the actual design of where these magnets would be held. And together with so many people throughout our school, our secretarial staff, our facilities management, our custodians, and so many teachers. I have to give a huge shout out to Catherine Nicholas, our innovation teacher. She was absolutely incredible in this process, but they came together and they started to think about what did we need to consider? Which brings me to my favorite day of the entire project, our ideate day. Together, our students came up with focus areas that they wanted to bring to the greater student community. And this is where you got to see where taking the approach of design thinking really did end up touching every single student in our building, and it couldn't have been done any other way. In this ideate phase, the students had come up with the idea of engaging the entire student body during the lunch periods. And what they did was they printed out these large 11 by 17 pieces of paper that were put on the cafeteria table to be able to get the feedback from every single student that came through the cafeteria on the locations where the magnets would be held, the stations and how they would be positioned. So some students felt like they should be vertical, others felt that they should be horizontal, and they wanted to hear their peers' feedback on that. The traffic flow, so where they should be located and what exits, as well as who in our community should actually be the holders of these magical keys that would unlock their pouches. And through this process, I wish everyone could have experienced that day, and I know my colleagues can speak to it so greatly. There was like an electric energy in the school as the kids came through the lunch line, and they're all lined up on the way to get their lunches, and they're grabbing the yonder pouches, and they're practicing unlocking them. Mr. Gussage even let his phone go into a pouch at one point and get locked up to prove they will truly unlock at the end of the day. And the students are sitting there, and they're negotiating with each other while they're looking at these large pieces of paper, deciding where their voice matters. And to see that engagement and that authentic conversation and the ability to sit there and have students talking about something that mattered to them was just truly incredible. The rest of the day, the school was abuzz. And I even had parents later on tell me, like, my middle schooler usually comes home and gives me like the middle school grunt. And tonight we actually talked about this at dinner. Like, they had so much to say about it. So I take that one as a win as well, that our students truly got engaged in the process and felt like they had a voice. From this magical day, because it truly was, from this day, we took all of that data back. So we're talking about 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that are then sorting through the data that their classmates have shared with them in order to come up with prototypes for what this will actually look like based on the feedback that students had given. Again, as much as I loved the ideate phase, I think the kids loved this one the best, the prototyping, because their ideas came to life. They got to, again, take that empathetic viewpoint, and they got to see it be created in real life. So up there you even see, our innovation teacher, Catherine Nicholas, was so crucial to this phase because she knows how to use power tools and I don't. But also, the students truly came up with this sketch, and she was able to show them how to design it not only on a computer, but then sat down and did the calculus with 5th and 6th graders on how to design the actual physical stand, and how many prototypes the students had to go through to really think about those extreme users. Additionally, our 7th and 8th graders worked with our maintenance and our custodial staff, because in their explore phase, as they were walking around the school, it was funny to see where their thinking went. They remembered the devices for hand sanitizer from COVID, which I mean, who would remember that? But they were like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. You know how we used to use the hand sanitizer? Like, we should find those, and that's a great place to put the magnets. So you could see where their life experience and the things that they had gone through came into this process, and they were able to use all recycled materials for this project. So there was no extra cost to our prototyping or to our implementation because the students went around the school and found these ideas and then put them into place. So as I reflect back on the process that we all went through together, again, I can't express enough gratitude towards Melinda, towards Matt, to Kat, to Bronlyn, to Sarah, to Steve, to Dave, and to Dr. Ferreira for their support in the entire process, but then also just the gratitude to our students because they really came together. They thought about their peers, they thought about what this meant to them, and they made it an incredibly fun and together process. So at the end, our students did come up with a great project. They did get what they were looking for, which was a system for kids to come in and out. And we continue to get feedback from students on the success of the program. Anecdotally, teachers are already saying that it's made a big impact on their classrooms to have the pouch system. And again, even though they're middle schoolers and intermediate schoolers, and begrudgingly they are locking up their phones every day, we are seeing smiles while they're doing it. So I call that a success.
So Kristen, thank you again for trusting the process and diving into this exciting opportunity. The momentum has been contagious, and we have been getting more and more emails and requests from teams looking to use design thinking even as recent as Friday. On the screen are just a few of the projects that are active. At New Canaan High School, we are using the design thinking process with students and faculty to reimagine what homecoming week can be and increase student participation in homecoming events. The downtown campus is using design thinking to evolve the potential of the program, including who they are and how they serve. And at our intermediate school, we have started to use design thinking to ideate problem-based learning assignments for specific learners that are having difficulty engaging in our typical curriculum. So hopefully you've been able to see our efforts to support innovation through design thinking at a variety of levels. As I said earlier, we wanted to highlight two branches of our innovation tree. So now I'd like to turn it over to Matthew Salarstrini to discuss the artificial intelligence branch.
Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, Kristen. And thank you all for the opportunity to give you this update on our efforts towards AI. So as Melinda mentioned a few minutes ago, I also wanted to ground this portion of our presentation in our district goals as we transition to the conversation from design thinking to innovation. So here, goal number 5 focuses on all students will graduate with the technological knowledge and skills to succeed in a dynamic and complex global society. As I read that through, the term dynamic seems really appropriate right now when we talk about AI, right? If we dig into those goals a little bit deeper, they're focusing specifically on building teacher capacity to engage in innovative thinking and learning through the use of AI. So as I reflected on this goal, I thought to myself, well, what is the process that we use to build teacher and then student capacity, build teacher confidence and their competence in what feels like a landscape that continues to shift underneath their feet? And I hope that what I show you in a few minutes reflects thoughtful and collaborative and a team approach to really building our understanding, our capacity to leverage AI to support learning. So let me start by giving you a little bit of an update on, because we've been hard at work at learning about AI and we haven't had a chance to chat. So you all are probably familiar about a little, around the fall of 2022, a little thing called ChatGPT dropped on our public consciousness with a big boom. Shortly thereafter, our shared learning experience really got underway in earnest the following fall. At that point in time, we started with an introduction to AI to our administrative team. And after an introduction, we then had a an earnest conversation with bringing in a consultant and a thought leader in this area, Matt Mervis, who works for one of the area regional education support centers. He is the director of Skills 21 and really works with many districts in the state of Connecticut and beyond in envisioning our path forward with AI. So after that conversation with administrators, say, hey, look, it's here, and let's start to think about what this means for us. The next step, I remember this conversation with Dr. Lutzy, was to start with inviting teachers and leaders to engage in a learning experience we called Fool Around and Figure It Out. The idea here was, let's make it low to no stakes. Let's provide the opportunity for teachers and leaders to come in and learn together. And you'll see up here, over the course of several months, we started with learning a little bit more about, hey, what is AI? What are the different flavors of AI that's out there? And that quickly evolved into conversations to consider about, so if this is what's available, what is the potential impact and value in education? And then it really brought us to talk a little bit about a term which I'm going to start to use a lot, and you may start to hear a lot. What are AI literacies? What are the skills and understandings that we need to have to be efficient at using the tool, to make the most of the tool, but all tools that are out there, and also be critical consumers of what's available. So after that really a valuable experience and the feedback from the participants there, it was clear that over the summer we wanted to spend a little bit of time creating some clarity for teachers as they come back in the fall. I knew that we were going to have questions. So what does this mean for us? And where do we stand as a district? So over the summer, we had some dedicated teachers and administrators come together in collaboration with Matt Mervis as well. And we worked to develop guidelines and guardrails. And I'll go a little bit further in depth around that. But we wanted to be able to provide some guidance and some outlines to teachers as they come back with certainly certain experience with AI, but questions as well. So as I mentioned, the first task of our summer project team was to answer the question, why? We wanted to be able to clearly provide an answer to anyone that asked, what's your vision of AI in New Canaan Public Schools? At the time when many school districts and people treated this technology with fear, you may remember that New York City actually blocked the use of AI for a period of time until they realized that this was a wave that they could not hold back. The team felt really strongly that the vision statement needed to reflect responsible optimism and to frame AI in the correct light as a resource that supports broader, enduring ideas that can be found in, as you saw earlier, the district goals, the portrait of the graduate, and the innovation statement that you saw before. If seen together, we hope that they create a cohesive language that guides our work in innovation. Yeah. So with this vision statement and valuable feedback that the team provided over the summer, we started to focus on where do we need to be, what does the start of the school year look like? Our first order of business was to provide an update to administrators as a part of our administrative retreat. We spent a half day together working and building a deeper understanding of what our district vision is of AI, but also, most importantly, starting with safety first. District leaders needed to understand what the guidelines and guardrails were for using AI for their staff and their students, so they could guide teachers when they started to have conversations around goal setting or work that occurred in their classroom. We then gave them time to begin to work in teams and sketch out what they thought their staff needed and to put together plans for their staff at the start of the year. Also, in September, with the start of the school year, we wanted to make sure that we got the message out about this vision statement to all staff. So we provided an update to all staff and our curriculum leadership team where they understood what our district's position was regarding the vision of AI and how it fits within our learning experience, as well as what those guidelines and guardrails are for use of AI. If we want to provide professional learning experiences for our staff, the first thing we needed to do is make sure we understood where our staff was with AI, okay? We needed to get a deeper understanding of what their familiarity, their dispositions, and their experiences are. So we sent out a survey to all K-12 staff, and those results were shared with building and district leadership, and they were also used to develop professional learning sessions that we started to deliver in October, which I'll share a little bit more details in a minute. What was clear is we had a wide range of experiences and attitudes towards AI. But fundamentally, our staff is at a spot where we need to learn more about what the tool is, what it can do for them and their productivity, and how it might be a resource for instruction and education. Also in October, I invited a group of students from grades 8 through 12 to meet with me and share their experiences, opinions, and ideas around AI. This was an eye-opening experience for me, and it was a truly impressive group of students. We had about 25 students that met with Dr. Lutzy, Dr. Krenti, and myself for about an hour-long conversation where they told us, and I promised them complete anonymity, so that's why you have an AI-generated image of our conversation up there. They talked about what they use. They talked about when they use it. They talked about what they felt were its benefits and its dangers. And I can only tell you that they were incredibly clear-eyed about what they saw the rewards and the risks were regarding AI in the learning process. There were some key takeaways I had from this conversation. Number one, for me, it illustrated how much students already see AI as a part of their everyday lives. Number two, and as a result, it also showed me how important it is that we work really hard to build teacher understanding and experience and learning around our AI so that they can be a part of those conversations with students along the way in learning. And third, and perhaps most importantly, it also showed me that these students need to be a part of our district plan and how we chart our course forward. So it had always been our plan to put together a district AI committee. And this committee, as you'll see here, I invited the students to be a part of that because I really felt their voice needed to be heard. They, along with teachers and administrators, will work together. They already met once this October on 4 key objectives that you see up here. Establishing and communicating ethical and safe use procedures, which comes first before anything else. Building AI literacy across the district. Professional development, and piloting integrations in the classroom. Since the AI landscape is evolving so rapidly, as I said before, this committee will meet throughout this year and into the foreseeable future. Once we have our feet on the ground a little bit and I'm farther into this process, my goal is to invite community members to be participants because we need to hear their voice as well. So as a final part of us AI update, I thought I could dig a little bit deeper into each of these initiatives that the committee is focusing on. In regards to establishing and communicating ethical and safe use procedures, building off of what the work that was done in the summer, we crafted these guidelines and guardrails that you'll see some examples here. We have AI Explained, which was a document to really help teachers and students understand, look, what is AI? What is its role? And what are some questions they need to be asking about AI if they're thinking about using it? And in addition, we wanted to create another resource where it provided a little bit of guidance for students about ethical use. How are you being responsible? But also, most importantly, we wanted to make sure that we took a minute to refresh all staff's understanding of PII. And by PII, I mean personally identifiable information. You may or may not remember, but in 2016, Connecticut State passed a law requiring education technology providers to adhere to strict data privacy laws and security standards, prohibiting unauthorized data use and mandating transparency in data handling practices. Some of you may also know that members of New Canaan community were key members of this legislation and helped get this passed. if we're trying to encourage teachers to use AI and consider how it may be valuable, the first thing we wanted to make sure we did is help them understand how they use it safely and protect student data. And so we put together a slide deck where we reviewed the legislation, the do's and don'ts regarding how a teacher might want to use an AI chatbot or a tool, what they can and can't put in there so that they can use it productively but also safely. And just so you know, we also communicated to staff very clearly that students under 13 cannot use AI tools as a part of the learning process. And students in grade ages 13 through 18 can only use approved AI tools at this point in time. Of those, there are, right now, currently, there are 2 which are approved in our district, okay? Next, one of the next things that our committee worked on and discussed were digging deeper into what does it mean to be literate when you use AI. And so this was a time where we had teachers and students and administrators sitting around the table talking about, so if I'm using it, what are the skills I need? And if any of you have ever had the opportunity to use a chatbot, you know that there are specific techniques that you need to apply to get the most out of the tool. Very often, the first thing you put into the chatbot is not really what you're looking to get out. So that iterative process, think design thinking, think the innovative piece, is really very important. And so the conversations we had as a committee were, so how do we teach students? What is it they need to know? How can they be efficient and also very thoughtful designers of prompts that they may want to put into a variety of different AI tools, okay? As a part of this conversation, students on the 8th grade students on that committee suggested that it might be really helpful to offer a course on machine learning so students could get a better understanding of how AI works. And actually, just recently, I read some research that if students understand more how AI actually works, the large language models, et cetera, they are more likely to be very critical consumers of the information that it spits back out. So listening to this, we saw an opportunity where we could pilot a course during a part of our workshop experience. We have a small group of students that are actually being taught some of the fundamentals of machine learning right now. And so hopefully we're going to be able to reflect on this with our technology integrator who's teaching that course and talk to those students and see what they thought would be the value of that. You'll also see up there some of the literacies that members of the committee talked about, what they felt like teachers would need to know and do, and what are some of the literacies that administrators would also need to be fluent in as well. And lastly, and most importantly, is the professional learning. As I mentioned, we sent out a survey in September. Most teachers had, I would call, modest comfort with AI tools. They also gave very clear feedback on how they felt they would learn best. They wanted to be able to sit alongside with peers. They wanted to be in a workshop experience where they might be able to learn along with somebody else. And so what we did is we set out to try to provide that type of learning for all of the teachers. Starting on the 5th of November, we delivered the first of several different workshops to help teachers gain, at the very basic, a fundamental understanding of what AI tools are out there, but also it was differentiated enough so if people had a more sophisticated understanding of AI tools, that they could engage in prompt design, either through prompts that you see were offered there as starters, or by collaborating with their peers as well, okay? This is where we are right now. Just last week, the picture on the right-hand side is the high school staff engaging in this type of learning, where they use that document where they could pull out any of those AI tools and start to see what they might be able to do with them. They could use any of the prompts that we had there, those prompts there for the middle school. They had high school specific prompts, and they started to learn together. And we're just starting that journey right now. The teachers need to become fluid in AI, understand how it works, so they can start to consider what that might mean for them as they plan instruction with students. So I want to pull out from the AI piece right now and then bring it back into the broader conversation around innovation. Okay, and we thought it might be really helpful to.
What design thinking is great
Oh,
for?
I'm going to go. We thought it might be very helpful to end with this video from Mr. McLeod, as you heard from before. Ultimately, what we're doing is by embedding AI within a framework of empathy, creativity, and critical thinking, fostered by design thinking, we can ensure that our district leads with integrity and purpose, preparing our students for a world where technology is a natural extension of human innovation.
What design thinking is great for is we know the world is ever changing. So 3 years ago, we weren't talking about AI, and now it seems that's all we're talking about. So we have no idea what our students, especially as a K-4 teacher, what my kindergartners are going to be facing in 10, 15 years. But what design thinking does is it gives them a groundwork for how to be able to solve those problems. So it's really a problem-solving method. And I think teaching them that is really preparing them to become lifelong problem solvers. That we may not know what problems they're going to face, but what we will be able to do is give them tools to be able to solve those problems.
So with that, we're happy to take any questions you may have.
Great, thank you very much. Brendan?
First of all, I found that presentation absolutely fascinating, so I appreciate it. Do you have, on the AI front, do you have sort of a timeline or something that we're trying to achieve maybe over the next year or couple of years? I know it's changing rapidly, so your timeline's probably changing, but as you think about building all the knowledge and expertise that the community needs, do we have kind of a plan going forward?
Sure. Right now, we're looking at we have several different options regarding a couple of platforms that will sign a data privacy agreement with us that we would like to pilot with teachers at the high school level, possibly middle school level. And we're really looking at trying to start that pilot experience perhaps in January, where we can get teachers and students perhaps in that space in a secure AI environment where the information that's put in there is not used to train anything. And once they're in that environment, then we're going to start to learn even more, well, what is it we need? What's the value? And start to talk about how possible shifts in instruction that AI may be able to do and provide.
Can I just also add, Matt mentioned that many schools' first reaction to this a year and a half ago was to just outlaw it and ban it entirely. What we've seen since then is more and more colleges are requiring it, necessitating that students know how to use AI and know how to use it responsibly in the room. Professors are starting to expect them to come with these literacies and know how to use it as a tool towards their own learning. So there is an urgency there, because we know that our students, as they're graduating here, are going to be going off to schools where the professors are expecting them to know how to use AI responsibly and use it as a tool to enhance, deepen, and accelerate their learning, not replace it. Right? So we do feel a sense of urgency around all of that, and we're working towards it.
Great. I just had one follow-up, which is, taken to its logical conclusion, AI can, answer any problem, right, or solve any problem. So when we think about students learning design thinking and how to solve problems in that way, do we feel like we have to sort of restrain use of AI as a tool to solve those problems through design thinking?
Okay. I think we're encouraging it to be a partner at the table. One of the pieces of design thinking is to kind of think differently than you typically would. So we take students through a process to do that, but AI also will prompt us to think differently about a solution that we hadn't thought about before. So in any time that we're using it, and I'm speaking about the educators right now a lot using it, you begin to riff off of what's there. So oftentimes, it's not what the AI just produces, but it's what you do with it. It's how you're engaging with it and interacting, and the next chat that you ask it to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I just would echo what Melinda said. It's more of a thought partner than doing the work for the person or the student. That's what we've seen as adults. me personally. It's either a collaborator or a coach as I work through something, not doing it for me.
I think that's also, I'm sorry, I just want to jump in. I think that's a real strong message that we heard from the students. They kept talking about it's not to do the work for you, it's to help you with the work. Many of them talked about how they'll use it to communicate and practice their foreign language. So they'll ask and have a chat bot go back and forth so that they're communicating, practicing. They talk about how they study for exams, how they'll ask it to create problems, or how they'll ask it to create a perspective of somebody that they might be studying in history so they understand that perspective. And then they're also really cautious when they know that the answers are wrong. And so they'll talk a lot about, well, the math of AI is not so great. So you have to be careful because sometimes you're going to get wrong answers and you have to be able to understand that you've gotten wrong answers. So it was really fascinating talking with the kids and understanding their use of how they're using it in their homework and when they use it and when they don't use it. And sometimes they'll say, it takes more time to use it, so it's just easier for me to do it. But it might give me a great starter sentence, or it might help me to study for an exam.
Erica?
I'm curious, are the students that we've engaged so far, they raised their hands, correct? So is it fair to say that they are further down the line of engaging AI than the average student, or are they really representative of all the students that we have?
So that's really interesting that you asked that question because like I said, we had about 25 students in that focus group. And I asked them, I said, can you raise your hand if you have either one or both of your people at home who use AI? Every child raised their hand and said, there's at least one parent that is comfortable enough and uses AI regularly. So that we felt that was an indicator, right? We just felt that was really notable, right?
Interesting. I'm also interested in one of the things during the design learning work that we've done over the last few years was the recognition that there's work already happening in design thinking in our, in pockets in the district, and it's raising that up, the profile of it. I'm wondering if we're also seeing that in AI. Are there teachers who are diving right in and who are leading the way and using it actively, and, the ways that we can use their experiments and their experiences to raise up the level of all of our teachers' comfort?
Absolutely. I can think of off the top of my head a couple of teachers at the high school that have had conversations who are designing their own chatbots to support them in their work in teaching their specific subject. It's about finding those folks and then trying to leverage their interest, their enthusiasm, and their experience. They're the ones that are tending to come out and say, I want to be a part of the process. We've had a really strong turnout say, I want to be a part of this AI committee. So I feel like we've got a strong representation of teachers that are interested and experienced that are on the committee or want to be a part of those conversations.
Great.
I forgot it. 2 questions. First is, I like the fact that there are guidelines established for students, and given sort of the increased use in AI and how common it's become for students, not only in the classroom but also at home, has there been any sort of outreach to parents as sort of to make them aware as to what are the correct parameters for using AI? I know a lot of parents think it's cheating, right? Maybe old school boomers like myself, but what is communicated to parents, and are those guidelines sort of set so they can help, again, shepherd their children at home?
So the plan was to have a community event sometime this spring. I think me personally in my planning, I wanted to make sure I had my ducks in a row, so to speak, to make sure that we had a clear message, clear plan. Also, ideally, I'd like to be able to know that we have a platform which is secure, that we can say, look, this is the tool that we've piloted, this is where we're going. I'm not sure whether we'll be there at that point in time, but my goal would be to have a community event at some point where we can share that out and also invite parents who might be less familiar with AI to learn, how this might be valuable to them and their kids.
Perfect. And you said there are 2 approved platforms. Is ChatGPT one of them, or? So
no, ChatGPT is not. GPT is not. These would be, I would frame these as educationally framed AI tools, okay? They sign data privacy agreements with the state. We haven't engaged in any data privacy agreements with them yet because we're at a spot where we're trying to determine which one we think is worth a deep dive pilot.
So these that are approved, are they available to the children at home or no?
They are, however, we actually engage in an actually signed contract with that family, with that vendor. I mean, I don't know whether they keep that data separate. Just if you're an independent user and you sign up on your own. I don't know. That's probably something I could ask.
Okay, no, the reason I'm asking is that if we're encouraging to use AI, it seems to me obvious that the students would at home use AI as well, and they'd most likely engage with the most common, which and most ubiquitous, which would be ChatGPT. And so are we sort of steering them to something that, you know, that we're not necessarily comfortable with, but that's what they're using at home? And so I guess, and that goes to my point about, are we, you know, sort of getting this information out to parents to make them aware as to how the appropriate use for this within an academic setting, right? Because my children will use it completely differently than probably what's appropriate, but, you know, it's an easy way to get the answer. And then I guess in playing that forward is as we think about sort of the appropriateness of AI in the classroom and how we use it as an educational tool and not, and I appreciate this, that it's a, you know, teach students the difference between using AI to help and using AI to cheat, right, which I think is of fundamental importance. What programs, what resources do our teachers have to identify the misuse of AI? Because I've seen that in programs where you can run sort of a reverse search to identify if a paper was written by AI or if it was written by a student. I mean, what resources are available to our teachers to identify that?
So unfortunately, there is no platform out there that is going to, that a teacher can go to that will be able, they'll be able to put student work into that will definitively tell them that it's been generated by AI. That's where we're starting to talk about how teachers need to reframe the work that they're giving students. We're using the term a vulnerable learning experience, which is one that is vulnerable to a student using AI to get around the learning experience, so to speak, or a durable one. So my hope is that as we plan forward and we get these resources available, and teachers can start to think about, okay, how am I crafting durable learning experiences where a student may see AI as a tool, but it's not something they're using to get around the learning experience.
And is there, I guess, sort of what's the timeline on that? I mean, how are we, I just worry about rolling out sort of AI without having our teachers properly prepared to protect our students' educational experience.
So the goal is to, I think the best thing we can do is create a resource which teachers feel comfortable enough to use that is safe, data privacy safe. And I would like to be in that space with them where they're thinking about, okay, I can use this tool. And then they start to reflect on how am I using it within the existing learning that I've already had designed, and how might that need to shift based on this that's here. That conversation I'm hoping will happen as we have the pilot resources available into the springtime of this year.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Phil?
So just given the district's emphasis on design thinking, I'm just curious, are we looking for ways to bolster the number of educators who are trained in this from the 33 to wherever we want to go?
That's a great question. So one of our goals this year is to build that capacity. So we would love to continue the work that we started in November with the K-4 staff. That was fantastic to be able to have all K-4 educators get the foundation of what design thinking is. We have found a lot of leverage with the specific design thinking workshops that are offered within our district, but then also there's one that we send people out to. And when we send people out, then you incur the cost of hotels and flights and things like that, which has been increasing in price over the years. So I think as we're seeing the momentum build from people engaging in those workshops and those experiences, but then also people who are part of these pilots. So we now have like 35, available here, who's gone through the process and begins to understand it and apply it, and then the momentum grabs a hold. So yes, we are looking for opportunities to continue it across the district, K-12.
And then I guess a question for Kristen, sort of downstream from obviously more focused students, less disruptive classrooms. As the dean of students, are you seeing less incidents of bullying and just disciplinary issues over the, I know we're only talking about a couple of months here, but is SACS a better environment because we've taken this initiative with the phones?
Definitely, again, speaking to just some of the anecdotal conversations that I've had with staff. At this point in the year, many of them have spoken to the fact that they would have had repeated conversations with both students and parents regarding cell phone use in the school, but also just in general with student usage of it, and that at this point they haven't had to talk to students at all, really. So they've seen a big impact in that regard. In terms of discipline referrals regarding cell phone use, I think that our community is doing a really great job of talking about things in general. So when things do come up, they tend to be outside of school, and we're able to address that on a case-by-case basis. That also includes some of the great work. For example, New Canaan Cares put on the workshop last week, and that was a really great opportunity to engage parents in a greater conversation. I can tell you the parent feedback that we've gotten. Dr. Ferreira was really helpful at the middle school level of reaching out to parents, especially of students who said that they did not have a personal device, just to check in to make sure that we were all on the same page. And many of our parents overwhelmingly, the response was, thank you so much for starting this conversation and bringing this initiative up. We really want our students to be engaging with developing a healthy relationship with their devices. So overall, I would say I certainly don't have to wonder what is in their sweatshirt pockets. You know, their yonder pouches are a very different shape, so I can usually pick them out pretty quickly when it's not shaped the same size. And our staff has been wonderful in taking a very collaborative approach on that, and saying like, hey, why don't we go check that in at the office? And the students are being very compliant with that as well. So overall, it's been an incredibly positive experience, and has really been a community builder, quite honestly.
Great. Thank you.
Of course.
Penny?
I was just wondering, with the yonder pouches, do you think there are ways that students and parents could use them at home? I mean, the students now have the pouches. And if you're trying to create like a study, you know, a period, like an hour where you're just going to focus on your homework and not do anything with your phone, you know, you could, as a student, say at home, I just want to pop it into that pouch.
I think that's exactly what we're getting at with the yonder pouch usage. Is it's one tool to develop that kind of relationship. So I've even said to students, like, think of it as leaving your phone in another room. I can say throughout the design thinking process, the students were very crafty in their design thinking process around how to figure out ways to unlock the pouches without the magnet present. They are they are design thinkers in that. However, again, they are holding up to the program in school with fidelity. I do really think that it is the start of the conversation. My hopes is to use design thinking again, and Melinda and I have already been in the talks of kind of a phase 2 for the project. We gave the students the how. Like, here's how you put your phone in, here's how you enter and exit the building. But now using the rest of the year proactively to start the conversation on the why. Why are we really doing this? How can we support each other in developing this healthy relationship with each other? So yes, I'm sure students can use them at home. We do have magnets that are available outside of the school in case anyone forgets to lock their pouches. So, you know, if a parent really wanted to have some quiet time at home, they could still drive to the school late at night to unlock it if they needed to. Although many of them say you can unlock it in the morning. And that's a nice teachable moment.
And we did administer a pre-test, right, a pre-survey, just to get a sense of things, what students and families might anticipate, and staff. And it's a little too soon to give that midway survey at this point, but in another month or two, maybe right after the holidays, we'll probably give it a shot and see what the feedback is, and just have another data point to measure against.
For sure.
So, when we're teaching design thinking, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question, and it's very tactical, so I apologize. There's two sides. There's what we call a subjective side and objective side. The subjective side, I think, is what has been outlined largely in the Yonder Pouch process, where we collaborate, talk about various solutions, so we work through them, and then ultimately we sort of pick one, right? Then the objective side is where, sorry, the subjective side can have multiple answers, right? Multiple truths. The objective side is the hypothesis, test, quantitative feedback, iterate loop, right? Where we go back and have, are we teaching that side where there's a single truth or working towards a single truth as well as the subjective and collaborative side?
I think it's built within the process itself. So within design thinking, you do have the iterative side, and you're collecting data, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, to determine what the best solution is for the user. So one of the things that we do is we spend a lot of time talking about the user and the needs of that user, and we grapple with the development of that needs statement. So in the needs statement, it's who's the user and what their goal is. So like a student will be able to, and then talk about the unlocking, for example, so that, and it's the rationale behind it. So in any of the processes, whether it's the homecoming or whether it's the social studies with the first graders, they are identifying that need and wrestling with that need statement to make sure that there's a term, it's called like falling in love with a need statement. You are peeling it apart and manipulating and rolling it around so that you really can get to the root of what is the problem that you're trying to get at. And then how are you going to know if you're successful? So back to the social studies project that's in the curriculum, going back with that green space plan to the users of it, the families at home, and saying, hey, I took your ideas and I took the feedback that I got from that survey, and how is this meeting your needs now? And getting the feedback from them to then iterate it is part of any of the processes that we go through with the students.
Great. Excellent. Thank you.
Julie?
Or feel better without checking their cell phones during the day. I know you've heard from some parents, but I'm curious if there's been any positive student feedback.
So as Dr. Lutzy said, we are going to be administering another assessment to the students that actually, like I said, our 8th graders came up with. I can tell you, again, anecdotally, just seeing them come in the door and willingly hand over their cell phones, just if they have forgotten their pouch, we do have phone lockers that they can use in the main offices for that process. There's not a lot of pushback in regards to that. Again, looking around at our spaces where students could typically have the opportunity to use their phone throughout the day, the phones aren't present. So where typically even our van drivers have reported, students in the cafeteria who would be sneaking a glance, or, they'd have to go over and ask that student multiple times to put the phone away, that's no longer an issue. So I think as a result of that, the students are engaging more with each other because there isn't that distraction. And the students have said truly, they're not seeing their peers on their phones either. So it's, we'll get back to you on the concrete data, the quantitative data on that one, but certainly as a community, you can feel definitely a difference. Also, the students get really excited about seeing the teachers having their own pouches, and I can tell you as an entire community environment, Melinda and I were talking about it once where we forget our phones in our offices too. It really just became something where all of us were in it together. The students, like I said, get excited to see teachers that have their pouches, and their teachers do use them to be in support of the students, but we're also just not seeing anyone in our community on devices throughout the day, which is helpful.
I'm just interested in the converse question of that. When we did the pre-survey, there were a fair amount of parents who were concerned about either safety or accessibility to their students, or just normal communication that they enjoy having the student. Have we had any feedback on the people upset with the program?
At the very onset, it was very few. Basically one hand of those that communicated with us. I do think that the intermediate school using school distance manager was incredibly helpful, especially for that age group, for parents to be able to communicate with their children. Again, I have to speak to our administrative staff. Our administrative assistants have made themselves more than available to field not only emails and phone calls to students from parents, and making sure that there's really been a loop of communication so that nobody feels that gap.
And then just as a follow-up, you've mentioned a couple times that you guys really want to shy away from punitive, anything. So what do you do with habitual students who this seems to be like a conflict with?
So there is a compliance factor to it, which is in our student handbook. Again, all of the students, they actually voted on how they wanted to learn about all of that, and we rolled it out in a video that all the students were able to see, and then most of the teachers also posted it on their Google Classroom, so if students brought it home, the parents could watch it as well. So there is a compliance factor to it, which is on a sliding scale. Again, we take it on a case by case and we work with those students. I have become a master at fixing pouches, so we've saved our community a lot of money too because I'm really good with tools now, and have fixed a lot of pins so that those pouches can still work. And again, I have to speak to the faculty and staff at SACS and their approach to it. It's one thing to walk up to a kid and say, what are you doing with your phone? Or to walk up to a student and say, hey, did you forget your pouch today? Because there's a locker in the main office that we can use. And it's that simple change in dialogue or in how we communicate it that I think has our students working with us in partnership with this project. So habitual users have actually joined our team, I would say. I, again, have to shout out our administrators for all their hard work in that as well. But you see them walking in the morning and they hand it over if they don't have their pouch with them that day. So, great.
All good? All right. Thank you very much. That was a really interesting, excellent presentation. I would say my own personal anecdotal experience with the Yonder pouch, which I think was incredible. Maybe intended, maybe unintended benefit, but only 2 weeks into using it, I asked my daughter, who has a watch just for communicating with us, not a phone. But I noticed we have her charge it on in the kitchen all the time. And I just noticed it was always there, even when she wasn't. And I asked her one day, I said, are you using these pouches? And she's like, oh, Daddy, she's like, it's just easier for me to leave at home because the line to get into school is way too long. Which is perfect. I was like, that's amazing. So, and she's, but anyway, thank you so much for the work you guys do. It's really amazing stuff. So appreciate it. Have a great night. All right, moving on. Statements of accounts. Sean O'Keefe, please. You're up.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, October, 4 months in, our operating fund expense actual totals $28.4 million, or 26% of our full year budget of $109. That compares year to year. Last year, our attainment through October was 25.6, so we're at 26.0, slightly ahead, indicating that we have potentially some timing issues as it relates to payment of invoices primarily in contract and property services and in supplies. But overall, we're on track. Grants on page 10 through 11, awarded grants to date, $2,086,000. Year-to-date expenditures on those grants, $216,000. So we have a remaining balance as of October 31st of $1.87 million. School lunch revenue through October, $715,000, or 23% of our full-year budget of $3.1 million. And it's actually a year-to-year decrease of about $11,000, or a minus 1.6%. Total expense through October is $558,000, or 19.6% of full-year budget, and a year-to-year decrease, again, minus 1.6. One thing I want to comment about in the expenses, since we haven't fully ratified the food services contract, the salaries in food services remain at the full year 24 level. So as soon as they are approved by both parties, we'll get the retro through to July. Net income for food services currently reflecting a positive $157,000. One thing that I have and my team has been focusing on for the last several months is reviewing all of the older capital projects. It was a big concern of ours, and I know it was a concern of The Board of Finance, we come every year to the Board of Finance for additional funding. And one thing that they always look at is, well, how are you doing with your older projects? You're spending the money. So we looked at the capital projects from 2019, full year 2019 through full year 22. There's the last page in the package, page 16. And we also looked at full year 23, which is not as old, but it's still 2 years old. So, and we pinpointed, we started with a May start point, and for older projects from full year 2019 through 22, we started out in May with a balance of $1.1 million. Through the focus on this effort, we now have it down to $321,000, so a reduction of $777,000, or 71%. And as I said, we also looked at the full year 23 projects. In May, it was $931,000, and we're now down to $678,000, or a reduction of $302,000, or 32%. So in total, our older capital projects have been reduced from May by a little over $1 million, or 51% of those starting balance in May. Questions?
Any questions? No? Great. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to an action item, we've got a donation from the eSchool PTC, which will move to approve a donation of $21,055.72 from the eSchool PTC to fund additional costs to the Outdoor Learning Center. Dr. Lutzy, anything you want to?
Sure, I'll just add, there are some just increased costs to this project. It's an outstanding project, and next time we're over at East, take a look and see. They are putting outdoor classrooms there, a stage for performances out there. They have a traverse wall for kids for climbing and other things. And just over the last couple of years that it's taken for the installation, the costs have increased a bit. So we have approved in the past about $83,000 or so for this project. So this puts it up a little bit over 100 all in. They hope that this would do it. They're looking really at crossing the finish line with the project, and it's really going to be spectacular for our kids. Incredibly generous PTC.
That's great. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the donation? Matt Campbell, second. Penny, all in favor? That's great. Thank you very much. The motion passes. Next, comments from the public. Anybody like to approach the board, please?
Hi, my name is Sloan Alexander, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my wife, Sarah Baker. We live at 238 Old Stanford Road. We have lived in New Canaan for 15 years, and both of our children have gone through South School and Saks. We now have an 8th grader at Saks and a sophomore at New Canaan High School. We understand that there has been a recent outcry from some parents over a book they wish to bring to the public's attention because it contains passages they object to. I would like to state very clearly that these parents do not speak for us. It is very easy to think that the loudest speak for all, but that is not true. In our family, we do not believe in censorship or book banning. Critical thought and deep discussions are what we value, and they can only be taught properly when our children have access to books. Kids today are constantly exposed to content from social media and online sites that go well beyond anything found in a school curriculum book. And as a parent, I find this to be more of a biggest challenge. The parents' rights movement is alive and well in New Canaan, but of course it goes both ways. We are parents. We have rights. We do not believe in banning or censoring books. As far as the curriculum at large, our daughters and teachers have been very clear about what they plan to teach and when they plan to teach it. They are professionals, and I trust them. If I object to something they want to teach, I can contact them directly, and I understand that there are proper channels to do so. I want my child to opt out of a book. I know I can do that as well. I already have power as a parent. I do not want them or other parents determining what my child's curriculum is. Because these parents shout the loudest, or possibly because their personal ideologies might align with yours, might be tempting to think that you have a mandate to act on their behalf. That is not what you have been elected to do. You work on our behalf of all families in our district, and we expect you to consider our viewpoints and that includes everyone. Our schools, specifically our high school, are consistently ranked among the top in Connecticut and in the country. I believe we should let our excellent teachers teach and let our administrators do their jobs so that we can keep our rankings high and our test scores high. Thank you for your service and your time.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to approach the board? Okay, thank you. Moving on to announcements and future business. Dr. Lutzy.
Sure thing. A couple of quick announcements. First of all, as you walked into the high school, you saw the front lobby decorated for our show this weekend, The Lightning Thief. It's going to be fabulous. It's our second show of the year, and if you're looking for something to do this weekend, we have a show Friday night and 2 shows on Saturday, an afternoon matinee and Saturday evening. Tickets are for sale at New Canaan High School Theater. Please come. We also, I want to say congratulations to girls soccer. They won the states over the weekend, first time in a long time. Excellent game, excellent performance, great interviews from our student athletes, and an awful lot of pride. So congratulations to girls soccer. And last, of course, our ceremony, our traditional turkey bowl on Thanksgiving morning. Again, buy those tickets if you can. They went on sale today after a little bit of a glitch, but it's all been worked out. And we are playing at Darien High School this year for the Turkey Bowl. And we've been very successful over the last few years in the Turkey Bowl, and we expect it to continue. So hope you can join us there too.
Great, thank you very much. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Campbell, Penny second, all in favor? Thank you very much. Have a great night and a great week.